Welcome to Short and to the Point, a podcast from the Comeback in Awful Announcing. Here's your host, Jessica Kleinschmidt.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Short and to the Point here on the Comeback in Awful Announcing. Jessica Kleinschmidt here. I'm halfway done with my pumpkin spice chai latte. We're killing it over here, even though it's still 100 degrees outside. A lot to talk about today. As you guys know, it was the Coliseum finale. So it was my final season in Oakland, which was very emotional for me. I wanted to thank everybody for your amazing words and just comments. It had all the makings of a funeral, but funerals have some beauty because you're surrounded by the people that you love, despite saying goodbye to things. You guys can see here, if you're watching it on YouTube, I have the scoreboard numbers right here at my desk, and that's where they will remain forever. But the stuff I took with me is not as, and some dirt. There's some dirt. Okay. Silly little rascals. I took some dirt from third base. 69. They're just going to be a little crazy. I took some dirt from third base, of course, because Eric Chavez is the reason I fell in love with the Oakland A's and my father, of course, and to fast forward years and be a broadcaster for the organization is truly the American dream. So I'm very thankful for that. I'm not commenting on my next steps as far as what's happening as my next venture. I will announce that soon. But until then, we are still writing strong with Short and to the Point. I'm excited for my guest today, DJ E-Rock. He combines sports and music. And for me, I need music like I need to breathe. But I also know that music is so important to sports, whether it's a walkout, whether it's warming up, whether it's bringing fans to entertain them. He talks about the marriage between these two aspects. He grew up in the Bay Area, San Francisco, and was a DJ out here, embracing the hip hop culture. So we discussed that. Worked for the 49ers as their DJ, worked for the Giants as their in-house DJ. We have a really funny Barry Bonds story and also a lot more, because when you live in the Bay and you embrace the music, there's something really beautiful about that, because the one thing about the Bay when it comes to the music, it's so cohesive. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. And if you've lived in the Bay and embraced the music, you understand why. So here's my chat with DJ E-Rock. Well, I'm really excited to get into this because hip hop is there's different layers to it. And it's a subject that I've been kind of intrigued by. But when we talk about hip hop, we think about the culture. I know you had Easy Mill. You were talking to him about you wouldn't be where you are at without hip hop, but you specifically meant the culture of it. So how would you define hip hop culture?
I mean, by trade, I'm a DJ, I'm an entertainer. I actually put out a story or like a reel the other day about how I fell in love with hip hop. And it was, I just remember I was young. I was like, maybe like in middle school or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I was in elementary. I don't know. It was so long ago. But I remember hearing 93 till Infinity from Souls of Mischief on the radio for the very, very, very first time. I had a little boombox, in my room. I was doing my homework. And I was just so mind blown by that record. I was like, yo, this is insane. This is crazy. Like, I don't know what it is. Hip hop was like starting to really get its bearings. I'm wearing a Yo MTV, Raps hat. Yeah. Like that was like another thing that I fell in love with. I used to watch that versus like, Saturday cartoons and stuff like that. Any replay of the show, I would watch it again. I was a huge Fab Five, Freddie fan. So it started with the music, and then I started falling down this rabbit hole as I got older. I tried to be a break dancer. Didn't work.
We all go through that phase. I get it. Yeah.
Didn't work.
Yeah.
I tried to be an MC. Kind of worked. I used to do rap battles at like local house parties and stuff like that in the 925. I don't even think it was called the 925 back then. It was like we had like one area code back then. That's how long ago this is.
Yeah.
But I ended up actually being a DJ, and obviously there are different elements of hip hop and different forms of culture, whether it's art, whether it's music, whether it's fashion, and then everything just kind of led it's one thing, like, the way I wear my hat, the way that I speak, the way,
Mhm.
I mean, what I play as a DJ, like, I'm really known for being a hip hop guy, even though I feel like I mean, I'm very versatile in that space. But yeah, the culture definitely opened up a lot of doors for me, just falling in love with it and just keep on, I just kept on going with it. And, it led to some really, really, really great things in my life that, brought me here to sit here and speak with you.
And here you are. You're on the
Here
Short
we
and to the
are.
Point podcast. Love it. I asked Rosenberg, I know he's your boy. We talked about this. We were talking about what about a specific song stood out. So you're listening to this song, you're listening to this album. Was it the beat? Was it the lyrics? What aspect kind of hooked you?
I want to say the sample.
Mm.
That beginning chord, like where it just like starts off just like super calm and then it just kicks in the door, down for 7 digits, da, 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 and it's just like, I was like, wow, like that was explosive. That was crazy. That was different, and my dad used to play records like, in the house, like Kool and the Gang and
Yeah.
Earth, Wind and Fire. Like those are the records that I really grew up to. So those have an affinity, like, or I have an affinity for those records, and those records really resonate in my heart. But when hip hop really came to play, and I just started, like I said, I just started diving down
Mm.
that rabbit hole where I was finding other records where the samples were just like, very melodic and very like intricate, or they were cut up in certain ways, and I was like, that's different. Or that's that song that my dad used to play like out
Mhm.
loud, like, on Sunday, like during the day when I used to wake up, but it's flipped this way or something like that. So I would like to say, like, definitely like the chords, like, the
Yeah.
way that these records were sampled and stuff like that. That was that was the big hook for me. Still is, actually.
And with your dad kind of playing these records, there's a comfort there. There's like a romance there. And I think of my dad. He introduced me to ABBA, which is definitely a different type of thing.
I love
But
ABBA. My dad listened to
ABBA's
disco,
great
all
too,
that.
and it's similar because I didn't know what disco was. Right? It starts
Mhm.
out slow, and then I was like, this is lame. He goes, just wait, and then the tempo would raise. So there's a comfort there. Why is that important to kind of have music in a household? Because we talk about the memories and the feel good, the warm fuzzies, but I feel like there's more structure there. There's something extra that sometimes you can't really define it.
That's a really good question. And I interview people every single day, just like yourself. And I've never, ever been asked that or have
Mhm.
asked that. That's a really deep question, man. How do I
I
answer
get
that?
there. I get there. I do.
Wow. That's a
And I
great
think it's
question.
because, like my parents are gone. So like I try to reach for the small little nuances that remind me of them. And it's a smell, it's a sound, it's a song. And it sticks. It's like little rules like sticks, but Dennis DeYoung and Steve Perry is Journey, period. Like those little things those are rules in the house, like rules in the household that are more than just a curfew.
Music was always prevailing in my household. My dad was really big on making sure that we got to listen to his tunes. Like, if we
Mhm.
were in the car with him, we weren't allowed to touch the radio.
Mm,
We weren't, and it wasn't like a militant thing. Like, it was just
right.
like, hey, let's keep this vibe going because this is what's gonna get me through the day and me getting through the day. I mean, I'm like 6, 7 years old, so obviously my parents have to get through the day in order for me to get through the day. Um, but yeah, I think the structure aspect just comes from there's just a certain energy, like,
Mm.
that you maintain, like, within your household. And we did that every single weekend. I remember waking up at, I don't know, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. Like, I'd be up playing video games all night. I still do that, actually.
That's the one thing,
And
boys don't outgrow that, I've noticed.
not at all. It's like
Yeah.
it's like golfing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I'm about to start golfing again soon. But another day, another question.
Yeah.
The I think it comes from definitely protecting the energy. And like I said, I used to wake up early in the morning. My dad would be blaring like, a whole bunch of 70s funk and, even some hip hop and stuff
Mhm.
like that. Like he was just like big on just like projecting a vibe, even though that he was never a DJ or a
Yeah.
performer or like, an entertainer or anything, but he just knew how to curate a vibe.
I
Like
love
he was
that.
just on it. like super on it, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, we did everything that we could to protect the energy in the household. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I never really understood that until I got a lot older.
Hmm.
It's important, I mean, it's good to have like, good energy and good vibes in the house,
I agree. And I lived in the Bay for about 6 years. You grew up in San Francisco, and it's a transient town now. And when you were growing up here, the music scene, I don't know what it was back then, but as time goes on, you have to introduce all these different people with different backgrounds. What was the music scene at the beginning of your tenure? I mean, I was assuming you started here as far as all of
Yeah.
that goes. So how would you like diversify yourself, or did you have to? Or did it kind of stay relatively the same? What was the lifestyle and the hip hop scene or the music scene like in San Francisco back then?
Well, the Bay Area is definitely a very diverse place in general.
Mhm.
It still is. I think when I first started, I started to learn that, the music scene was very diverse. Like, we were known for a lot of great things and great, like, artists and like, musicians that changed, like, the face of their genres, whether it was hip hop, like, from E40, whether it was rock from Metallica.
Mhm.
I mean, let's even go back to like, Tower of Power, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Huey Lewis, like, I was always like exposed to a lot of that growing up. My dad was a huge Huey Lewis fan. I was a big E40 fan growing up. Still am. That's my big brother right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always been a diverse place, and you had to really understand everything to be in it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like I feel like my roots come from those early days where like my dad would just expose me to all these different forms of music. I mean, one day he was listening to Herb Albert, the next day he was listening to Confunction, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Um and even till this day, I think that has helped me a lot in becoming successful at what I do. How was it when I first started professionally? It was a very like up tempo time. Freestyle was really big.
Mm.
We were playing a lot of freestyle, but we were also playing a lot of hip hop on the radio. I started on KMEL when they went full hip hop back in 1996. I was the one of the youngest. I can't even say that I am the youngest anymore because like, times have definitely, changed and,
Father time,
technology.
baby. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of somebody else has kind of surpassed that record. But at the time, I was the youngest guy to ever really like grace the airwaves there. I was 16 years old,
Hmm.
when I started on KMEL. Then after that, I went to Wild 94.9. I spent a good amount of like, my time there for, I don't know, 12, 13 years. Like that was like, my end of high school, like,
Hmm.
all through college and even getting out of college. Like that was like, where I spent a lot of my time learning everything. And when I was there, I had to be a very diverse DJ. I had
Yeah.
to learn how to play hip hop, like what was big back then in the early 2000s, and also like what was big in dance music.
Yeah.
We were, I don't know exactly how to explain it. We were kind of like one of like the first like country's hybrid stations. I don't think that there
Mm.
was like a lot of stations at the time that were playing both hip hop. Like I remember playing Daz in California and Dog Pound, New York, and at the same time playing a Jocelyn Enriquez record, like in the same set, in the
Oh my
same
gosh.
hour.
Wow. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I had to learn and it, like I said, like, a lot of those teachings really helped me, like, become like, this diverse like DJ today, like, 20, 30 years later. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely different then. It was definitely different. I feel like everything now is just like so like, oh, if you're hip hop, you're hip hop. If you're dance, you
Right.
dance, but there's nothing really in the middle. You know what I mean? But
Right.
I've maintained that course no matter what. So
But I will say the one thing, and see if you agree with me on this, because obviously I cover the Oakland A's. And when it comes to the music, there's such a seamless, not really a transition, but there's a way where we can like introduce all of that music in one. So 1 minute you're doing E40 and Pilo, and then there's Green Day. Obviously, that's an East Bay scenario. There's Third Eye Blind, which is, San Francisco, and so on and so forth. It's kind of like there's a cohesive bond there, and it's easy. And you're a DJ, so you're constantly dealing with the transitions. Do you think that's the case for the Bay Area and San Francisco, where it's like we all have the commonality, and like we can all kind of just not get along, but it's easy to kind of all be on the same page in a certain aspect.
No, 100%. Like, and it goes back to, like I said, how I had to learn how to be a very diverse DJ. I think there were even
Yeah.
times where we had to play, a few Green Day records,
Yeah.
like, that were very big on the pop spectrum, or a Nirvana record or something like that. I remember Nirvana Teen Spirit was so huge on KMEL back in the day. Like, that's how far back I go,
Yeah.
but yeah, you had to learn to be super diverse in order to survive as a DJ in the Bay. And I think that lesson in general, like, has, like I said, helped me out, along the way for many, many, many years, even today. So,
and, you say you started so long ago. Were you able to witness any big names in like the infancy of their career? Like at the beginning of because radio DJs, I remember that was the dream job back in the day, and you'd go to all the concerts and be able to interview all the people. Did you see anybody kind of first starting out and now they're big now?
A lot. I mean, there's so many to name. I remember one time, working at KMEL and running into Biggie, which was something that I'll never forget. He was good friends with him and Little C's were good friends with DJ Friends, and who was another Bay Area legend that's doing this thing out here in Las Vegas. Always repping the Bay. Love that guy. One of my mentors. I used to answer his phones. KMEL, hello, what do you hear? You know what I mean? Pull when commercials were on carts and stuff like that, pulling them off the wall and stacking them. Like, here are your commercials for the hour. I remember one time when I worked at KMEL, I used to do hotel dirty. What's wrong? I can't even talk today. It's early in the morning now. That's just me naturally. But
not an excuse. Not an excuse now.
Not an excuse. Got to stay on point. Come on, E-Rock. I remember doing hotel duty during KMEL Summer Jam, and that was kind of like the early artist relations job, and they used to send their street teams out to make sure that the artists would come from their room and get escorted to the shuttle or the van, and you would escort them.
I could use one of those, like to escort me to the gym, to the grocery store. Yeah, I could use one of those.
Too.
Yeah.
But I remember meeting Aaliyah on one of those excursions, and I remember it was in Concord. I had walked Aaliyah to the van and I introduced myself. I was super starstruck. She had just started hitting it really big, and got her to the venue. She did her thing. She was actually really good friends with Franz, and I remember I was so marveled watching her communicate with him, just converse and stuff. And I think there's a picture out there that of them actually hugging, that is circulating. But I remember years later, again, I was doing hotel duty, and Aaliyah was on, my artist list, or, the list of artists that I had to escort. And she had remembered me 2-3 years later. And I remember I was like, oh my God, Aaliyah remembered my name.
Wow.
What? And she was massive, just insane. Other than that, throughout the years, I remember Akon, I remember when he was first coming up. I did his first meet and greet in the Bay Area. I used to own a record pool that used to service music to a lot of DJs in the clubs, and I did weddings and stuff like that. And I remember the label called me and said, hey, I got this new artist. He's got a record called Locked Up. But I need to get him in front of people. Can you do a meet and greet, and I'll help you with the expenses for it? I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. And I remember Akon pulled up to my office at the time by himself, and just sat down with me, and we waited for people. And people were at least an hour and a half late. They didn't know who this new artist was at all.
Wow.
Who's Akon? I think I've heard the record. It was before even Locked Up was played on the radio. But I remember we just sat down, we just chopped it up. And geez, I don't know how long, maybe 17, 18 years later, I'll run into him performing at Vegas nightclubs and stuff like that. And we'll bring up that very, very day. Hey, remember when we were sitting down and you pulled up by yourself, and nobody came until maybe an hour and a half after the start of the event? And I was like, yeah, man, times have changed. So, but yeah, there's a whole bunch of stories like that. I mean, I've had a extremely great relationship with E40, who was obviously like, one of the ambassadors of our
Mhm.
culture, not just
Yeah.
like, Bay Area rap. Pilo, I've known him. I mean, he was actually my neighbor
Oh,
at
wow.
one point. When he was first coming up, I remember he lived maybe a few blocks down, and he used to visit me while I was playing in Vegas, and he used
Mhm.
to tell me like, "Hey, I used to hear your show on Sirius where you would play nothing but Bay Area records and da 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 da." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I do that show in my house. Like I
Mhm.
pre-record everything." He's like, "Dude, I live right around the corner. I didn't know that."
Yeah.
You know, but just T-Pain,
Yeah.
who else? G-Eazy,
Oh,
Easy
that's right.
Mill, like you
Yeah.
mentioned. I mean, the list goes on. I'm fortunate to have been able to put a lot of great relationships together with a lot of these people. And they all start at day one. So I've been there for a lot of these artists, like when they were just now or just then trying to get on, and now they're mega superstars today. So
Yeah. I was hoping to see, I call him Gerald, even though he didn't give me permission to, at one of the A's games over the last couple of seasons. Every
just
time
do it.
he's at
Great.
an A's game, I'm not like working. I don't have a mic around me. I don't have any assignment. Like he's there. I'm like, I can't do anything. So, but I was hoping he would make it to the last season. Pilo threw out the first pitch for Filipino Heritage Night this year at the A's
That's
game.
awesome. How
And
was it? Did he make it to home plate?
he did great. He didn't bounce it from what I remember, but the best part was one of our guys. He's on the Royals now. They acquired him at the trade deadline. Lucas Ursig, San Jose native, big Pilo fan, uses his songs as warm up. Was geeking out about it. He was so
That's
stoked
awesome.
that Pilo was there, and Lucas is one of the nicest guys ever. So to know that he got to geek out a little bit made me very happy. Yeah,
That's super awesome. That's great. That's
yeah,
great. I've seen Pilo, like from his infancy to his stardom today, and we'll have really deep conversations in some of the most odd settings, like in the middle of a
yeah,
nightclub in Las Vegas, and everything around you is just going crazy. And
yeah.
then I'll just tell them like, you know what, man?
Childhood trauma. Let's go.
No, I just tell them like, hey, man, I'm very proud to see how far you've came. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he has definitely made an amazing and incredible name and legacy for himself.
Yeah.
That like, like I said, like I remember him being super, super even younger than what he is now,
Mm-hmm.
talking to me about how he used to listen to my radio show back in the day and how we were neighbors.
Yeah. And it's cool though, because the way that they are not only proud of the Bay Area where they come from, when you think of Bay Area music, it's like E40, it's Too Short, it's Pilo. I think that's such a beautiful thing. But they really embrace sports. E40 has a 49er song, Bang Bang Niner Gang. Then Pilo has Do It for the Bay. And you have attachments to sports as well, this DJ program with the 49ers. And it's so interesting. I've heard you talk about it, and we'll go into details later, but tell me more about the DJ program.
So it is a collective, I like to call it. It's called the Amp Squad, and it's a funny story how this thing came together. And I actually told the story for the first time on on another podcast with Brianna McDonald. Shout out to Bree. One time she gave me that platform, and people were very, very, very surprised that the Amp Squad started by accident. So back in the day, I used to just be around all the time. And I remember, being around Colin Kaepernick a lot back in the day. You told me about your Nevada
Yeah.
roots in Reno. So, he was a really good friend of mine. I met him at a nightclub called The Edge, I think. It was
Oh
a
my gosh.
techno. I used to DJ there. They used to fly me up.
Oh my gosh.
There. But I remember the talent buyer, she had introduced us like Colin Kaepernick, DJ E-Rock. He's from the Bay. You play in the Bay. You guys got to get to know each other. And then we hit it off from there. And so I was around Colin a lot, and I used to go to a lot of games at Candlestick, and I, befriended his family, and got really close with a lot of other players and even like, executive staff. Fast forward, the team moves to Santa Clara, and they're opening Levi's. My boss, I worked for the SF Giants for a good 5 years as their DJ for quite a while. My boss there left the Giants and went to the 49ers simultaneously as they were opening Levi's. So he was like, hey, like, I'm about to do this thing, with the 49ers. I think, you'd be a great addition. Like, the team's never really had a DJ. Like, what do you think? I'm like, yeah, sure. No problem. I'm down for that.
Yeah.
I'm a lifelong 49er fan.
Right.
You're not going to twist my arm.
No twist of the arm. Yes.
So I accepted the gig. The first year, we never really got around to it. We just couldn't really, they were opening up a new stadium, and they had like a new guy in there. His name Rob Alberino. And I count my lucky stars, like, meeting that guy, because I've learned a lot from him throughout the years. But at the same time, he gave me my break. And I remember he pulled me in for a meeting one time, and he was like, "Hey, we know that you know all these artists, and we know that you're connected. We've seen you with Little John." That's another artist, by the way, that I've known since day one.
Oh, wow.
He's like, "Well, what can we do here? We have to open the stadium up with a bang." I'm like, "I don't know. Like, I can kind of ask around." And I remember going in that meeting, telling them that I can get them Pitbull. And then they said, "You know what? I think ownership wants Snoop Dogg. Can you make that happen?" I'm like, in my head, I was shook. I was like, "Whoa, no, but I'll figure it out." And I figured it out. I knew somebody. And, we got it done. Snoop Dogg was the first performer ever in Levi's.
How many degrees of separation did you have to go through to get Snoop Dogg? How many people? Oh, that's not bad. Okay.
It wasn't that bad, because
not bad at all.
At that time, I was just getting my name out in Vegas. I had just signed a big deal with the Light Group to do Haze, and that was an amazing time. And so I was really, really in close with the talent buyer there that I did my contract with. I just had a great relationship with him, and I called him. I was like, "Yo, I need to get this Snoop Dogg deal done, and I don't know how, but can you help me?" He was like, "Oh yeah, I can get it done. No problem. Let me call somebody."
Oh my gosh.
And I remember I was just like, "Oh my God, man. Like, my reputation is really, really, really depending on this."
Yeah.
And like I said, he got it done. He did majority of the groundwork. So, thank God, like, I wasn't thrown in the fire too much, but I connected the dots, and I still do that for the team now. But so it was like the second year that I was with the team officially that we created the AMP squad, and they wanted me to do all 8 home games. And I had just like started really getting busy on the nightclub circuit. I was out of town a lot. I was traveling a ton. And I was like, dude, I don't want to lose this opportunity, but at the same time, I don't know if I can handle it. And I was really, really nervous on like how to approach it. And I came up with this idea. I was like, you know what? What if I created like a collective of like the biggest 49er fans that happen to be DJs to play these games with me versus just me doing it alone. And at the same time, I came up with these different verticals, like, well, like, it could be a thing to where like if someone goes big on the team and they get huge and national acclaim, it helps everybody, and everybody can kind of cross promote and work together and all that. So my creative juices started to go. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to pitch this idea of this 49ers DJ collective. I pitched it to them, to Joe Legaz and Rob at the time. And they loved it. They're like, "Yo, we love this. This is amazing. Let's do it. Who do you have in mind?" Again, I was like, well, I didn't really have anybody in mind just yet, because I didn't know if you guys would like it, but I can source pretty much like, the biggest DJs in the Bay Area that happen to be 49er fans to be a part of this. So here we are. I'm 11 years with the team. The collective is in its 10th year, celebrating its 10th anniversary.
Aww.
I never really thought that it would get this far. I thought that at some point they would be, you DJs are too rogue and you guys are playing stuff that's not no. It's actually became a really big hit with in-game presentation and with the fans too. Shout out to Laura Johnson. She's who her and Toby Mack, we get to collaborate on a lot of great ideas and make some great magic to happen every single home game for the 49ers. So yeah, that's kind of like how it started. And what I do is I handle a lot of the day-to-day decision making on the behalf of the DJs, and help them like get coordinated, set them up for success, and kind of like help streamline that process, just because I've been through it a million times. So with this team and other teams as well, I'm there to kind of like help set the stage before every home game for the DJs and for the in-game presentation team is also.
Well, when it comes down to it, I heard you on an interview talking about the balance of you want to make the fans happy, but you also want to, you want to like pump up Deebo Samuel too. So how do you kind of find the balance of that where you have to cater to people who are watching the game, but are also playing in the game as well?
A lot of it is done through data. We know what our season ticket holders are in love with and what they don't like. A lot of surveys get set out, for on the behalf of in-game and stuff. So we do a lot of great things to kind of figure out what your typical 49ers fan likes and dislikes and whatnot. And at the same time, we talk to the locker room, and we have a good relationship with a few people in there that are either coaches or they're a part of some type of their staff of some type of level to where they're able to convey to us what Deebo wants to hear, what some of the players want to hear and stuff. And we we incorporate all that together and try to come up with the most perfectly balanced play set or playlist for that set, every home game. And there's two different instances. There's the pregame where you're warming up the fans and you're drumming up the energy in the stadium. And then there's also the in-game aspect, and the in-game aspect, we want to be very fan facing and very fan friendly, because that's where you got to create that home field advantage. And if they don't feel like they're a part of it, I mean, this, you work in sports, you got to stir the pot a little bit sometimes. Yeah. And our job is to help stir the pot. We do have another DJ. He's an honorary AMP Squad member, Andrew Rivas. He does all the audio in between plays and stuff like that. And so we get to work with a lot of the elements hand in hand and figure out how we can fill in the blanks, and cover this aspect and they cover that, this and that. It's a really good team effort. So.
Yeah, it's always kind of intrigued me because baseball's so individual. They get their warm up, their walk up, and I just know I need music like I need to breathe. And I know when I talk to athletes, it's an important aspect to it. There's times where there's guys want to switch their warm up every single time. Sometimes they just want to keep it as it is. So I'm always putting my thought process of what they're thinking, because are they in a slump? Are they not? Is it working? And, sometimes I think Brent Rooker kept the same walk up, and he's a music guy, and he thought about it on the drive-in for opening day. I'm just going to do this. And he just kept it the exact same the entire season. I was kind of impressed with that. He had a great season. So why quit? Why?
Amazing season.
Yeah, exactly. I know you also DJ'd for the Giants, right? And so I love the DJ aspect of a baseball game. It's so unique. We have one for the A's as well, and they go on the field, and it's just it totally enhances everything. What are the day-to-day duties for that? And is it kind of the same process where you're catering to the fans, but the players have input as well?
Well, I'm no longer with the Giants. I left that once I got to the 49ers. So that was about 15 years ago when we started that DJ program. At the time, it was myself, DJ Solomon, and Slick D. We were the three DJs that they leaned on. And, it was so new that we didn't really do a lot of prep. We just kind of knew, what we need to do. I remember they created a concept I call Orange Fridays when we were there. And we were tasked with just trying to light the stadium up with just, that good, feel good energy, whether it was a dance record or just something to amp, the fans up. I don't think we did a lot of prep back then because, like I said, it was so new. That was the first time they had DJs,
yeah.
Other than the Warriors are the first team to ever have a DJ attached to their team. And they've only had two, I think. They got Solomon, God rest his soul, and then they got D Sharp today. And then we replicated that idea to bring it over to what is it called now? Is it Oracle Park now?
It's Oracle Park now. Yeah.
Yeah. And our thing was just, like I said, we just wanted to pump energy through the stadium with just whatever we felt was right at the time. And I think if I remember if I was on comms with in-game, and Joe Lagaz was the in-game presentation guy at the time, who I worked with at the 49ers when I first started the AMP Squad. It was all on the fly. He was like, "Hey, yo, we need you for a 1-minute hit. What do you got?" Pitbull, Go Crazy. All right,
Yeah.
let's do it. 3, 2,
Okay.
1, you go. And I would
I
just
love
play
that.
it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, you know,
I
but
think. Do
yeah,
you think there's a benefit kind of in that regard where it's kind of the start of something? There isn't a blueprint. You can kind of do what you do, and obviously the guy in charge of all the ballpark production trusts you. There's a benefit there.
no, for sure. Like
Hmm.
it enabled me to kind of sculpt the position, I guess,
Uh-huh.
and and mold it into something like down the line. Like I was there for a few years, and you know we started probably crafting plays is like what I used to call
Yeah.
it, and hey, we're gonna do this right after seventh inning, after like the sing along and this and that, or we're gonna do this like between this inning or whatever. And like I said in the beginning, like there wasn't a lot of prep, just
Right.
because it was so new. But as as time went by, like I was able to kind of mold it into something, and then I gained all this experience, and then even going to the 49ers, it was a lot more structured there. And
Right.
then when we started working under Laura Johnson, it became a thing to where, like, I had to put my thinking cap on a lot, and it challenged me because she is just a goat at what she does. And she came with this vast experience that enabled me to learn, a whole new skill set in, run of show. I don't even think we really saw a run of show in the beginning
Mm.
of my tenure with the Giants. But understanding the script and all that other stuff, and just kind of like how everything plugs into each other. It's all, and for people listening, like, yo, everything that you see at a sporting event, like everything is on script.
Yeah.
Like we have like a run of show that we go by, and a lot of that is like just from experience and vibe and knowing what your consumers want, or your fans want. So yeah, I mean, it's been a learning experience throughout the whole entire way, whether it's been by myself or having great mentors attached.
Yeah. And people forget that it's a production. It's a show. You're putting
Yeah.
on a show, and people forget that. And because for me, like when I was in TV and radio, and then when I was doing more of the stuff at the ballpark, they have segments, and obviously things change because you can't predict what's going to happen during the game. But those aspects, it's a full on, you have executive producers, you have the operators, and you have everything going on behind the scenes, and people tend to forget that there's a full on production going on, and it's not something tiny. Yeah.
I remember my first time being on comms. Or for those that are listening and don't know what comms is in the sports world, it's what we hear. It's communications. It's what the people with the headsets that walk around the ballpark or stadiums hear when they have them on. And I remember the first time hearing people on that and how they communicated and how things were count down and going like, yo, 3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah.
Don't think everything is just in concert and everyone's working together. It for me, like, yo, I'm such a in-game presentation geek,
Mhm.
where it's like I'm just so like, I'm marveled by it, when you just kind of see things all work out and
Yeah.
fall into place, and you see the magic that happens, after all the planning. You're like, yo, that was insane. Like how flybys happen. That's
Oh
insane.
yeah.
Flybys, like having planes fly over,
People
when
don't talk about that enough, by the way.
no,
It's not like you can just like send a text.
like these flybys are timed
Yeah.
where they fly over at the moment that they say home of the brave or something like that, and it's like it's an insane thing.
Yeah.
You know Billy Barnes, I'm sure, right?
I don't know
I
if I
know he did some work at the Coliseum sometimes, or
possibly.
did, but he runs the entertainment over at the SF Giants now. But he worked at the 49ers for a little bit, and that guy is a flyby goat.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like he just knows, like dude, he's just and man, he's just. I remember asking him, going like, "Yo, are these things like timed out?"
Yeah.
He's like, bro, more than you know. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, yeah, because we had a flyby for the finale at the Coliseum, and Barry Zito sung the national anthem. So you're trying to digest this. You're emotional because it's the last game. There's a flyover, and you're like, I can't I can't process all of it because it's not a thing that happens at the Coliseum all the time. It was just for this amazing affair that was going on. So just a lot happening at once. I think it's one of the most beautiful things that you could have at a sporting event. I think the national anthem is gorgeous. It's always great. Even if somebody messes up the anthem, it's still a beautiful nod to our country. But I also know that like there's nothing better than a flyover. It always gives me chills. I think it's such a beautiful thing.
The emotion that runs through your body when those jets fly over.
Yeah.
You're just like, wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
You know, and you're already engaged because you're listening to the anthem. And you're proud of your country, and you got your, you got your hat off and your hand over your heart, and you're in it. I always get, goosebumps when I.
Oh, totally.
I mean, but once that flyover hits, like, it elevates. It elevates for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that everybody loves it too. It doesn't matter because there's people that aren't paying attention and it's fine. But when there's a flyover, everybody's looking at that no matter what's going on. I think that's one really cool thing. You have this really funny story about the record-breaking home run after Barry Bonds hit it and he threw a party. You were spinning at the party. Tell me this story.
I opened for DJ Cassidy at the time. For those that don't know who he is, he has a very popular YouTube series called Pass the Mic, and actually they've replicated that YouTube series and they put it on the Las Vegas Strip, where he actually does what he does on this series, at a theater, which is really dope. He's a New York DJ. At the time he was super, super popular, and I remember opening up for him. And I at the time I was a super huge Giants fan. Like, I don't know if I was working for them yet. I'm not sure. I was going to games and stuff like that. Like, there was a lot of fanfare there. I was a split team kid pretty much, like, growing up until I started working for each team individually. But I remember I got hired to open for Cassidy. I was playing records in the club, and mind you, we're in a nightclub. The nightclub at the time, I don't even think it's there anymore. It was Row Nightclub. What happened? Oh, I was playing records. Now look, I'm still young at the time, so I'm playing a nightclub set at that very moment. There's not a lot of people in there because it was invite only. You had to be on this super exclusive guest list. I mean, it was Barry Bonds' home run record breaking party during All-Star weekend. I think. Yeah. So every like big major league player like ever, like, like GOATs from Jeter to Bonds to Willie Mays, like they were all in the building. And there were two instances, and I always tell like one story on other podcasts, and I'll actually tell another story on it, here. But the first story is I was playing records that were full of lewd content.
Yeah.
I mean, it's rap. It's what they wanted me to play, hip hop. You know what I mean? Like, you're in a club setting, like, you don't think about like, having to make it family.
We're not talking about puppy dogs and candy canes, y'all. It's not happening.
And I remember like, playing, I forgot what record it was, but it was definitely lewd enough for Reverend Jesse Jackson to give me the side eye while he was walking past the booth. And I was like, oh man, that's Reverend Jesse Jackson. And I don't think he likes what I'm playing. I should probably change what I'm playing. So I remember starting to get very conscious on the content of the stuff that I was playing. I was like, all right, I kind of know my crowd. The second story was Willie Mays' assistant came up to me and said, hey, we know you have to do what you have to do. We know this is a party. Willie's in, he's in the building right now and it's very loud. Could you turn it down, while he's here? And, I know who Willie Mays is. Like, I grew up playing baseball, like, and watching baseball, whether it was, the A's or the Giants, I was like, oh my God, like Willie Mays? Like, yeah, absolutely. And I remember I turned that thing down from like most DJs have it at noon. That thing went down like maybe.
What number do you need? I will do it. Yes.
I was like, yo, I'll do it. Sure. No problem. Turn it down. And I remember somebody came up to me. Hey, can you turn it up? It's like really quiet. And like, hey, Willie Mays is in here. No, I'm going to turn it up when they tell me it's okay to, like, out of respect.
Yeah.
So yeah, I never said that's the second half of that story. And that's the Willie Mays part. But So yeah, those instances happen. I remember Cassidy came in and, you know, he was Cassidy, like he was a star. He comes
Yeah.
in, we get him set up, you know what I mean? And he just lights the place up. Like, you know, and I was like, wow, I never seen this. I want to say that was like my first like real celebrity like
Right.
function that I ever played at, like where it was like super star studded.
Mhm.
So I was just like just completely just blown away, going like, oh wow, like this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
You know? So
That's amazing. And for those types of gigs, and mind you, I don't go to those types of parties, but I have been a bridesmaid a billion times, and I think the set list of what not to play is more important than what to play. Is that the kind of requests you get for parties like this? Like, this is what you definitely have to play. Keep away from these songs. Do you get
man,
more of the nitpicky stuff for the bigger clients, or is it just a scenario where they kind of trust you?
I am 15, 16 years a veteran of the Las Vegas Strip. I've seen it all.
Oh, okay.
You know, and I feel like those functions hold nothing to what I've seen in Las Vegas and playing these
Interesting.
venues here. When it comes down to do not plays and things you need to play. I actually got a funny story about things you need to play that I'll talk about
Uh-huh.
later. Yeah, I remember. I mean, I remember one time there used to be a customer that used to come into the nightclub, and it was a standard that you played Bon Jovi, "Living on a Prayer,"
Living on a prayer. I was, yeah.
but not just once. You had to play it over and over and over and over and over until he's out of the door. Like you'd have to stop and go, "Yo, so and so is in the building. Da 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 da. He's going big. Living on a prayer." Like, you know, dun 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 dun, and you're just like, "Oh my god, this is crazy. This
Yeah.
is just like insane." But you know, it's Las Vegas. People come here to throw the
Yeah.
rules out the window. You know what I mean? And hey, you know, money talks. And at the time, like, you know, bottle customers, they used to come in and pay 20, 30, 40, 50, sometimes 100K a night.
Yeah.
They get what they want.
Yeah.
It just is what it is, you know.
Mhm.
But for like celebrity functions, like, you know, I've never really like had like anything that's like super crazy that's ever been on a do not play list. Like, you know, it's
Mhm.
always just like a note or something like that. And it's nothing ever controversial or whichever. It's like, hey, he just wants to hear, or she just wants to hear, or the couple wants to hear X, Y, and Z. Right? No problem. But we
Yeah.
go through all that prep way
Right.
before, like, you know, I even arrive at the venue. Like, you know, we've had that conversation like a week and a half, 2 weeks before, you know. Like right now, I'm prepping for F1. I
Mhm.
do the Red Bull Energy Station for Rebel Racing.
Oh,
Which
that's
is
cool.
turn 3 on the course, and that's an amazing experience. But you know, I'm prepping for that, you know, currently, and just kind of figuring out, like, you know, just what those, like, you know, fans want. And you know, I think I got a good, you know, handle on it from the first time. And the first time that I did it, I didn't know anything about F1, didn't know anything about the customer.
Yeah.
I had to watch Drive to Survive, like
Yeah. I feel like that's
all
what made a lot of people fall in love with it. Yeah.
dude, that's F1 101. That's the
Yeah.
starter kit right there for getting to know F1. And then once I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, you know, I can kind of figure it out. And I figured it out, you know, fairly quickly. But you know, all the preparation that goes into any event happens at least a week, 2 weeks before.
Yeah. And just because maybe it's because I geek out with music, because a lot of people love to geek out with me. They're like, "Oh, do you get to talk to so and so?" And I don't really. It's whatever. And I know because like they're my colleagues and cool. Like I get to talk to X, Y, and Z. When it comes to music, I just get so excited. Not necessarily because of the artist, but the music itself. Do you find yourself like talking to celebrities or athletes and they geek out on music? Because when I'm talking to athletes, if it's not golf, they're talking about music that they're into. Do you notice that they kind of want to talk to you about music a lot?
So one person I talk about music a whole lot is Gary Payton 2, GP2.
Oh, wow.
Really good friend of mine. And he'll send me records, like, you know, on
Oh, I love that. That's a form of love language.
that's my
It
dog
is.
right there.
That's a form of love language. Yeah.
That's my little brother right there, man. And he'll send me records like, hey, I went here and I heard this. You got this? I'm like, no, I don't. But hey, thanks for putting me on, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I get to have like, you know, some really dope conversations with athletes about music. I used to talk to Colin Kaepernick about, you know, a lot of hip hop stuff back in the day. Let's see. I used to share a lot of music with Pablo Sandoval. Actually, one thing that I used to do for him, because he used to come into the nightclub that I used to be a resident at, and I was actually a director there in Fusion Lounge. He used to come in all the time, and I remember he gave me his iPod. He was like, yo, whatever you're playing, I want to hear.
Oh, I love that.
No problem, bro. And
Yeah.
I remember I had to program his iPod for his workouts. Shout out to Pablo, man. I love that guy. That guy was one of the greatest San Francisco Giants ever. But I used to do that, and then here and there, like, you know, I've done parties for Tyrone Lue and stuff like that. I remember he came out to Vegas and I did a private engagement for him to celebrate, like, you know, his new deal back in the day. And you know, same thing, like, you know, they handed the iPod or asked me to program his iPod. I'm not sure if I did it or not. Actually, I gotta text coach and see if I need to follow up. Like, hey, did you give me your iPod?
Did that work?
If you did, I probably still have it. No, but yeah, I run into those situations all the time, and it's a really dope thing, you know. And I ask them, what is it that you want on this, or what type of playlist that you want, you know? And it's cool to kind of see, like, you know, the musical interests of a lot of, like, you know, players and stuff like that. And it gives me a lot of perspective doing what I do today, whether it's for the 49ers or whether it's for the Aviators out here. You know, I do events for them.
Nice AAA drop. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Got to shout out the Aviators one time, man.
I just called a game of theirs 3 weeks ago, a month ago.
Oh, nice.
My best call ever.
Appreciate it. Thanks. I would have went. Come on.
Well, it was in Sacramento, so you wouldn't have seen me. Yeah, they were playing the River Cats, so it was a quick trip for me. But it was the best call I've ever had. So there's that.
Nice. But you know, yeah, it's pretty cool to kind of see that.
When it comes to residents in Vegas, it feels like you're always hearing about, you know, Britney Spears gets one, and Backstreet Boys, Shania Twain, obviously Celine Dion, icon. When it comes to that, how do you go about getting these residencies? Because it's a big deal compared to, and you've had several. So how do you get those compared to other gigs?
Man, dude, I remember my first residency was at the Palms, and I used to play a plethora of other venues on property, Moon, Rain, Playboy Club and stuff. And I remember, you know, that was my training grounds. You know, that was when I really learned, or where, you know, I was taught more so, because Vegas will teach you a lot of things, you know, when it comes down to what we do. It's, you know, it's the pinnacle, you know, it's the NFL, it's the MLB of what we do as DJs. And then I remember getting my first really big shot at Hayes nightclub inside the Aria when the Aria first opened. And I got that because I ended up filling in for somebody. I don't even know what the circumstance was. They just called me one day like, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? I was like literally, what are you doing tomorrow? It's Thursday, and they needed somebody Friday. I had done like guest sets there, you know, in the past. And I was like, well, I'm booked at so-and-so, and I'm booked here in the Bay, but they're both in the Bay Area. Why? What's going on? Are you coming out here to the Bay? And that's what I was thinking when I got this phone call. And they're like, no, we actually need somebody to play the venue. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
When? Tomorrow. Okay. He's like, but you got to do it from like literally 9:30 until like whenever. I had no opener, no closer. I didn't even know what that was back in the day.
Yeah.
So like literally I just came to Vegas, you know, and every single week I remember filling in, and I was like, it was week to week. I had to cancel gigs that I had booked in the Bay Area. I mean, even Giants games, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
And I was just learning, and I was just like, okay, this worked. This didn't work. This is what they want. This is what Vegas is about. This is the type of energy I need to do every single week, you know. And I just kept on going. I remember calling them every single week. I'm like, yo, are we doing this again? Like, yep, this weekend.
You got the itch. I love that.
This weekend. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. And then it just went on and on and on until I got the phone call. And like, you know what, man, it's just time. Let's just make this official, man. You're our guy.
I love that.
And at the time, it was very special because my father had just passed away.
Oh.
And it was a full circle moment for me because my dad bought me my first pair of turntables. So I feel like I had just I finally made that investment really make sense, in that matter for man, I get pretty choked up talking about it. But yeah, I remember the phone call, and I remember hanging up the phone. I was living with my mother at the time. Me and my wife, she was my girlfriend then. We moved in with my my mother, to help her with expenses and stuff. My dad had just passed away, and I remember hanging up my phone and walking into the living room, and we were still in grieving, at the time. And I remember telling my mom the good news, and then she just looks at me, she's like, "You know what? That's your dad right there." I'm like, "Wow, that was heavy. That was heavy," but I'll never forget it. And I think that's why Vegas is so special to me when it comes down to every single gig that I do and every single show that I try to put on, and I've been doing it for, quite a long time. I wouldn't say I was super successful at it for a long time. I want to say maybe a decade or so. I've been headlining a lot of big rooms out here. But I've been doing it for 16, years or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of work goes into it. There's a lot of preparation. There's more preparation than everything I've ever done. Because you just never know what to expect. I mean, it could be a big customer coming in. It could be a team coming in and bringing that whole thing up about how I had a record I had to play. I remember the 49ers had faced the Chiefs for the first time in the Super Bowl in Miami. And I was scheduled to be at Hakkasan Friday after Super Bowl. And that would have been amazing if the 49ers had won, that game, because it would have been the 49ers that would be at Hakkasan,
Yeah.
The Chiefs came in. And I remember they called me like, "Hey, you got a minute?" Yeah. Travis Kelce's coming in and Patrick Mahomes and the whole entire team is coming in to celebrate their Super Bowl win. Do you have Beastie Boys Fight for Your Right in your computer?
That is the least surprising story I've ever heard in my life, honestly.
I'm sitting there going, I'm sick, man. No. I'm like, yes, I do. Well, just be prepared tonight. They're coming in hot.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, funny. Okay. And I remember I was nervous. I was like, man, what if these guys come onto the DJ booth and there's end up being pictures and I'm the 49ers guy. I remember I called the 49ers guy. Hey man, if there's pictures of me and the Chiefs, I didn't ask for it. They're
it's a great storyline. It's a great storyline. Yeah.
And they're like, dude, don't worry, man. We know that you're our guy. It was actually Billy Barnes that I was talking to, and shout him out, man, because he talked me off a ledge. Hey, E, don't worry about it. You got to do what you got to do. All right. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. But yeah, the residency thing. I mean, dude, you just got to be ready for anything out here in Vegas because you just never know what you're going to get. You never know the outcome of a night. You never know if one moment that you create, and those are things that are very important in Vegas, is that you got to create moments throughout the night. You can't just play a set. You got to put on a show. You got to be engaged with the crowd. You got to be a part of the party. And those moments that you create throughout that night, could change the tide of how much revenue is brought in.
Yeah.
If someone, like I said, when people come here and they go to a Las Vegas nightclub, they're in a different mindset than they are when they go to a nightclub back home.
That's true.
And they want to have the best time of their lives. They want to have times that they're never going to forget, or forget with people that they're never going to forget. Yeah. You know what I mean? And
well, hopefully they do forget. I don't know.
Yeah, you're going to forget something, but hopefully it's not the time that you have here. But the thing is for us is to, as a resident, you got to be able to create those moments for people. Experience is everything. We're a very big hospitality town, so I'm very big on being hospitable to the audience, whether I know them or not. I'm reading the room 24/7.
Yeah.
Going, okay, these guys or these people went off on this, or it's a bachelor party there and it's a bachelorette party on this side of the room. And then, this person probably won 20,000 across from me, at the craps table. So you just got to figure out how to kind of engage, with every single corner of the room, and just, figure out how to turn it up, and then when you get everybody on the same page, then it's a blockbuster night. You know?
Yeah. I think I heard you on a podcast say, or I think it was the host saying, the DJ could make or break a night.
100%.
Hmm.
100%. I mean, I've seen even, and they shall be not named and stay unnamed, but I've seen some of the biggest DJs in the country come into big rooms here in Vegas or even in San Francisco and completely bomb. And, they probably spent 20, 30, 40 racks like on the talent buy on them to appear. And they probably made the same that they would if they paid their resident in-house DJ, which is crazy.
Yeah.
It's a crazy thing to see.
Crazy. Last couple, there's a moment that I am obsessed with. I don't club anymore, but you mentioned Edge.
Shout out to Julia Jeffers. You know Julia? She used to run that club. That was her name.
Maybe.
Shout out to her.
I just remember being 21 and somehow getting my name on the list, and I thought my shit didn't stink. I go to Wet Seal and get like a bubble dress, and it was a whole thing. But I loved the moment where there'd be one of two songs that popped on. It was always Back That Ass Up and Headsprung by LL Cool J, which Headsprung is still on my always played on Spotify. I love that song. Do you ever notice that moment where it's like, see, my crazy girlfriends and I, there's one song that plays, just hear them screaming and you hear the clicking, clacking of our heels. I guess they don't really club in heels anymore, but the click and clacking, you just hear us all of a sudden in this little hole. We're all, preparing for war to dance to this song. Do you see that moment? It's my favorite moment ever. It's like a song. It's the best.
Several times a night, probably.
It is the best. You can't. That's a high I'm chasing forever.
Yeah, several times a night, maybe even more. In Vegas, it's what you experience, at home, but on steroids. You know what I mean? And for me, I would like to say maybe, Back That Ass Up is definitely one of those timeless records that you could drop at any time, and people are like, "Oh shit, this is it. Hey, come on, let's go. Put your shoes on."
Yep.
You should never take your shoes off in a nightclub, by the way.
Never. Don't do it. Well, if you probably won't be able to move.
People do it.
Yeah.
People do it, man. That Blow the Whistle by Too Short, and they sing the first verse very loudly. Trying to think what else. No Hands, Waka Flocka.
Oh, that's a good one too. Get Low, probably.
Get Low is another record that really works. Trying to think. Mo Bamba by Sheck West. That's a record that just ignites the room all the time.
Kulo, for some reason, I feel like Kulo is a song that would do it for me.
Depends on the crowd.
Yeah,
it definitely depends on the crowd. But I have seen it go off though.
Yeah,
in my time for sure.
Hot in Here by Nelly.
That still works.
That's actually one of our guys' walk-ups.
Yeah, and believe it or not, this is how we do it. Because
that's good.
This is a timeless record. It's just such a timeless record. Yeah. It doesn't matter how old you are. If you're very young, you heard your parents play it. If you're of older age, then guess what? You probably grew up to it. So it's hitting, tons of demographics across the spectrum. But yeah, that those moments are what I live for, because those are the moments that we are tasked to create through the entire night.
Amazing. And I've never admitted this to anybody, literally ever. But when I was very, very young, I printed out lyrics to Back That Ass Up. And I remember,
you can rap that song word for word. Then
I wanted to. That's why I was doing it. I probably have to refresh.
Okay.
But I know What's Your Fantasy by Ludacris pretty well. But when I printed them out, and I was so little, I was like, what is this? And it's like when you I had to dance to Are You That Somebody by Aaliyah, not knowing what the songs were about, when you're little and you're listening to them when you're older, what is that? So I printed these out. I have probably just learned how to read, literally. And I remember my dad found them and he's like, what is this? I was like, I'm just learning how to rap. It's fine. He's like, what? And I just remember just wanting, because I think rap is so beautiful, how fast they are. I thought it was so cool. But poetry. I really just wanted to know it's poetry. I wanted to know. I'm actually in a rap song too. Somebody put my name in a rap. So
nice.
That is the cool thing. But my last name's Kleinschmidt, so you can imagine what they rhymed my name with. But that's neither here nor there. Last
You know,
one.
you just rhymed your name yourself, right?
I did.
My last name is Kleinschmidt, but you wouldn't believe what it rhymes with. So there you
There
go.
it is. There it is. I'm easily rhymable, if
There
you
you go.
will. Last one before I let you go. I feel like T-Pain is the collab king, and he's never come out with anything that sounded bad. And I feel like with him, and he does it kind of troll wise, like on social media now, any type of genre that you're into, you can love you some T-Pain. What makes him a guy that people want to work with?
He's funny. He's a funny guy. His personality is through the roof. His energy is always at a 10. Like, you know, you can never go wrong being in his presence. You know, we've had some great times together, great conversations. You know, even when I pop in on his Twitch stream, like, you know, I'll chime in and stuff like that. And he's just animated and he's just super positive. Like, you know, you want to be around positive people, obviously. And I feel like T-Pain is a positive guy that happens to be a celebrity.
Yeah.
You know, and he's positive first because I've never had a day or a night or any instance in general where T-Pain's just been just low energy or in a bad mood. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. And you feel that through his music. You feel that through when he collabs with other artists. You know, he brings a whole new set of energy, like, you know, through those projects that probably those artists wouldn't be able to have done by themselves. You know, we did a record together that did fairly well. It's called Checkout. You know, he murdered it. He just destroyed it, you know, and he took the storyline of partying in Las Vegas until Checkout and literally wrote this song, like, you know, around, like, you know, what somebody in Vegas would experience. And he just literally man, I can't even put it into words, like, you know, how he story told that record in his energy.
That's amazing.
And man, it resonates like whenever I hear it and whenever I, you know, I even, like, you know, sing the words to myself. I won't sing the record, like, you know, out loud or anything. Or when I play in the club, like, you know, it really like resonates because, like, I think I've had a night like that or two, you know.
Oh, so I love that. That's true. And
it just stands out, man. It pokes you in the chest.
Oh yeah,
a lot differently than it would, like, you know, with any other record. And I think that's, like, you know, the story that goes behind every other T-Pain record.
Amazing. Yeah, I think he's just universal and classic, and I think that's so cool. I feel like I loved him when I first discovered him, and I love him now. You know what I mean? Great. And I feel like everybody, no matter what generation you are, you love you some T-Pain.
He's the GOAT, man.
And he's also like, there's nothing off limits with him either, right? As far as collaborations go, like there's nothing, no genre, country.
You know, pop music. He did a cover album recently.
Man,
there's nothing off limits, man. He is a true artist, a true creative, a true musician. You know? So he can really sing too. I mean, he won. What is that show called? Where you get
Masked Singer?
You know, so you know,
Barry Vito was on that too.
I was super happy for that guy. You know, when he won that, I was like, wow.
Like
there goes his price.
This was so much fun. Thank you so much for stopping by. That was DJ E-Rock. He's in Vegas now, but he grew up in San Francisco and the Bay Area. He's a 925 guy, which is where I live, 925. I just loved his combination of music and sports because I told you guys, I'm a fiend for music. Music is the reason why I work out. It's the reason why I don't go crazy sometimes. It keeps me sane. It keeps me honestly distracted from the thoughts in my head. And I think it's a beautiful thing. My phone is constantly telling me to turn down my music, but who wants to listen to the thoughts in my head? That's crazy. Thank you so much to E-Rock for stopping by. It was a fun conversation. And who knew that Willie Mays was the guy to get you to turn the volume down? If anybody's going to do it, it's a legend like that. Thank you so much for tuning in to Short and to the Point here on The Comeback and Awful Announcing, and we'll see you next time.
Want even more short and to the point? Follow Jessica at Kleinschmidt JD and head over to thecomeback.com and awfulannouncing.com.